Hello, this is Angela with Permaculture. Welcome back to Hausfrau Friday. This is a regular weekly segment where I discuss the overlap of domestic skills and philosophy and sustainable living. And today is no exception. I want to talk about a subject that I know you are all thrilled to dive into. It's just something I'm sure is at the top of everybody's list of things they want to do when they have spare time, and that is estate planning. Now, I'm not going to do a whole comprehensive guide here. I mostly want to talk about a book I discovered recently that has helped me quite a bit, and my own recent experience having to settle my mother's estate and also set up care for my elderly father. The book I'm talking about is called I'm Dead, Now What? And I think it's a really, really helpful book. So let's just talk for a few minutes about estate planning. Now, number one, I want to say here, get yourself a good estate lawyer. This book and anything I'm going to say in this video is not a substitute for a good estate lawyer. Now, if you don't know where to find one, you can ask your accountant. I don't have an accountant, but I have a friend who is an accountant, so I asked her. And an estate lawyer will help you do a comprehensive will, making sure that your possessions, your property, your securities go to the folks that you want to receive them, either your heirs or charities, your children. And they will make sure that that is all mapped out nice and clearly and make sure that your wishes will be honored. I have friends and relatives who've used one of those websites to do a will, and it is cheaper that way, but they can't do as complicated of a will. And if you have things like guardianship for children that you want to set up, if you might be establishing a trust, if you need to also include medical and financial durable power of attorney, I highly recommend getting an estate lawyer. It's a good investment. It's an investment not only in your peace of mind, but it's also a way to show love and care for your heirs that you are thinking well in advance. Now, over 2 years ago, my mom passed away, and she was the matriarch of the family, and she also was a brilliant financial mind who managed all of the finances for my parents. And she ran an investment club and was extremely successful at doing so. I didn't really know anything about my parents' finances until 3 weeks before my mom passed away. She told me, like, oh, by the way, we have some resources, and I haven't organized them very well because I didn't plan on getting cancer, and also I didn't plan on a global pandemic that would shut down banks and make it impossible to get bank appointments. And so we have these resources, but they're not well organized, and settling my estate is going to be tricky. But I need you to take care of your father, and I need you to make sure that everything is organized and that he is secure for the future, both financially and in terms of his care. What a shit show that was for me. During the pandemic, not only dealing with grieving my mother, but also trying to find the names, the account numbers, the passwords to take my parents' financial resources and move them into a trust that my parents had established to oversee my dad's care. That took me probably 20 hours a week for 6 months. Again, I was dealing with kind of the height of the pandemic when it was really difficult to get bank appointments, and everything needed a medallion signature guarantee or a signature guarantee or a notary or all three of those things, and a copy of my mom's death certificate and my dad as the executor to be present. It was a nightmare. What I learned through that process was that it was needlessly difficult and frustrating, and I'm in no way blaming my mom. She thought she was going to live forever. We have most of our relatives live to be quite old. We have a lot of longevity in our family. She did not anticipate getting an aggressive form of cancer, and so had not really gotten that far in the estate planning. Thankfully, she had a will. So along with all of that, we had to disperse the possessions from my parents' house as my dad moved into assisted living. And my mom just said, well, you kids will divide it fairly. It'll be easy. Just, you guys just deal with it. You'll be fine. And I think she really believed that. But in my limited experience here, there is no dispersal of possessions that siblings and other folks, maybe it's nieces and nephews and aunts and uncles and things like that. There's no lack of feelings when it comes to dispersing that kind of a thing. And it's one thing to say you'll be rational and calm about it. It's another thing to actually behave that way. So all of that experience, both dealing with the fact that my parents' finances, while my mom had them organized in a system that made sense to her, my dad was clueless as to where any of that stuff was. And I had to figure all of it out very quickly in time to get control of my dad's finances so I could help pay his bills and take care of him, and also settle the estate in Oregon. I had 9 months to settle it while I was in a pandemic. It was a panic. And then after that, the headache of dealing with trying to anticipate what would my mom have wanted and how do we distribute things according to her wishes without them being really clearly delineated. All of that led me to purchasing this book. I'm in a Facebook group for folks from my college, Grinnell College. It's an alumni group for folks taking care of aging loved ones. And I had seen this book, I'm Dead, Now What?, mentioned by multiple people. And it just struck me as a way to show kindness and compassion to my children, right? So after I'm gone, hopefully many decades in the future, I want them to not go through what I have been through in the last 2 years in terms of the chaos, in terms of the hunting, in terms of the panic. Have I lost track of an account? Is there a small retirement account over here where we don't have the passwords? And my mom actually didn't list any beneficiaries. And I want to make sure that my wishes are really clear and that my kids get the opportunity to have less of a burden while they are grieving. And I want to make that process easy for them. So I got this book and I thought, let's talk about it really quickly. It says important information about my belongings, business affairs, and wishes. So when you start looking at the book, it has all of these tabs down the side. It's really a planner. It's not so much a, like a journal or things I want to say to my kids. I mean, I'm hoping I will have had a lifetime to tell my children how much I love and adore them. And I know they will be successful, wonderful people, enjoying their own adult lives, and they will do fine after I am gone. What it really has is these tabs for personal, where you list personal information about yourself. I was shocked at how many tiny details I needed to know about both of my parents while I was gaining control and organizing their finances. So if your parents have a PO box key, what the PO box number is, where the key is located. For my parents, they had a safe deposit box, and finding the key to that was a process. So making sure that all those things, like your heirs need to know where all of these things are. What's my social security number? Where is my social security card located? Things like your birthplace. All of these details about your life, including if you have current spouse, former spouse, your mother's maiden name, all of these things that you might need to pass on to your heirs because they might need those for security questions when they're trying to settle your estate. Information about your citizenship or military service. This is a big one for my dad. My dad spent 30 years in the Air Force, and me being able to access all of those things, access his VA account, access all of his military stuff, I needed a lot of information to be able to do that, and he couldn't always give it to me. If you have medical information, where is this located? It's just so unbelievably helpful to have a binder and have everything all in one place and say, hey, thumb through this binder, you will find the directions to the things that you need in order to settle my estate. Who your appointed agents are, who has power of attorney for you, where is that paperwork located? If you want to be an organ donor or give anatomical gifts, that those wishes are expressed here. There's a whole page for medical conditions. Now for me, this was a big one. I know my mom had genetic testing. Attempting to get a copy of her genetic test results after she passed away was really difficult. The clinic that had a copy of them would not release them to me. They would only release them to my dad, who has dementia and could not go to the clinic and sign for them. And so I had to mail in a copy of my mom's death certificate and had to mail in a copy of a power of attorney and a bunch of their forms before they would release it to me. It's a big headache. So having all of that stuff clearly listed out so that your heirs don't have to track down any of that stuff, super helpful. You could also paste in here links to anything that's on your Google Drive or physical copies you could tape to this of test results. Information about who your primary care physician was, any specialists that you see, all of that is very helpful. And again, to an extent, while you're still alive, if you're incapacitated, a lot of the information in this first section on personal and the second section on medical is really helpful if your POA or your children have to take care of you and you're incapacitated. A lot of this is really relevant then, so don't think that this book is only applicable after you pass away. Key contact information. This is super important. If your kids aren't the executor, who is your executor? Who is your estate attorney? Who is your accountant? All of that is really important information for your heirs, for your executor when they're settling your estate. Along with that, who is your financial advisor? Who is your insurance agent? Who are your healthcare providers? Do you have a clergy person? And then we get to this section of at the time of my passings. Up until now, all of this is useful for your children or whoever is taking care of you. If you are unable to care for yourself, they might need all of this stuff. At the time of your passing, it has your wishes here. Please contact the following family members. I hate to say it, but when my mom died, we were so overwrought with grief. It took us a while to have to sit down and say, like, who do we need to call? Who do we need to call and let them know that mom is gone? And having to sit there and think through which cousins need to be notified. Oh, my aunt needs to be notified. My mom's best friend from childhood should be notified. When you're in that fog of really intense immediate grief or the kind of numb, shell-shocked state that you're in, you don't want to have to come up with that list. So I'm going to make sure that's all listed out for my kids. They need to contact your employer, friends, military contact if applicable. Loads and loads of space to write everybody that you want to be notified. I found that when I've been looking through this book and thinking about filling it out, that every page is a gift that I can give to my kids. Every page is a way I can reduce their stress and make it easier for them to grieve and easier for them to get through the annoying clerical parts of death so that they can focus on the meaningful aspects of, comforting each other and processing the loss and moving on with their lives. And so every bit of this book, time that I'm going to spend filling out this book, is a gift that I'm giving to my kids. And it feels really good that way. It makes it feel less of a drudgery and less of an annoyance for me, less of something that causes anxiety. It's something that I know even after I'm gone, I'm continuing to love my children. If there's arrangements that you want made, now my dad very clearly listed out all of his wishes to me, and I'm grateful for that. So if you want a funeral, if you don't want a service, things like that, all in here. If you've already bought a plot somewhere. Any dependents that you may have. This is children, this is aging parents that you may have, or other dependents, listing all of them really clearly. So if somebody who is caring for you is not your executor or is not one of your children, they have a clear understanding of who you have been responsible for, and they need to make sure that those folks continue to be cared for. Next three sections are ones that to me are highly personal and relevant, because these were areas where my parents had not really organized things, and they maybe organized them like my mom knew where things were in her head, but it wasn't written down anywhere, and that made it very difficult for me to hunt for this information. And so I wanted to make sure that for my kids it's all in one handy place so they don't have to comb through file cabinets or computer files. Where is my will located? What is my driver's license number? Where is my driver's license kept? Where is my passport kept? What is my passport number? Where is my birth certificate? We did a lot of guessing, like, is it in the family safe? Is it in the safe deposit box? Is this thing just in a file somewhere? Don't want to have to do that again. Don't want my kids to have to do that. Where's your marriage certificate? There were a couple of things I needed to produce a marriage certificate in order for my dad to take possession of some of my mom's resources. This is a huge one, especially for our generation. Information on my computer. What are my passwords? Where are they located? Are they on a thumb drive somewhere? Do I have a keeper account, something like that, that stores all of my passwords? Where are those? That has been a huge one for me, especially because my parents have a lot of different accounts sprinkled everywhere, and they all have different passwords and all have different logins. And I had to hunt down what some of those were. And in fact, my parents didn't even have online logins for a lot of things. I had to create online accounts for most things because a number of their accounts, my mom was just doing everything over the mail because she really hated computers. So that account numbers And then I had to go and create an online account. Well, I have to find the account number. Well, first I have to figure out which accounts are they, how many are there, and where are they located. It was just like, I didn't know when I had come to the end of a list. So I want to make sure it's all clearly listed. Financial information. Who has financial power of attorney? Now there's financial power of attorney and there is healthcare power of attorney. I am both, and I have both for me. That's really important. They don't have to be the same person. What all of your banking information is. This is really important, and make sure you have beneficiaries already listed for all of these accounts. So not only are your heirs able to locate where all of this stuff is, you already have them listed as your beneficiaries. That makes things way easier. All of your credit cards. This is a big one. I only have 2 credit cards, so I didn't really know how many credit cards my parents had or how to close accounts. I had to mail in copies of power of attorney and fill out all kinds of paperwork just to close out accounts. And for my mom, mailing copies of death certificates. It was a mess. Like, all of the work, once you already know what the accounts are, is pretty extensive. So not having to hunt for this information is really helpful, and it really reduces anxiety for your heirs to know that they have finished this list. These are all of the credit cards. There are not more secret credit cards out there somewhere with bills to be paid on them or accounts to be closed out. Stocks, bonds, and more. Like I said, my mom ran an investment club, so she would buy stocks and had a lot of them. And by a lot of them, I mean 1 or 2 or 5 shares of a lot of different stocks, because that was her hobby, running an investment club. And tracking down where all of these were, it was really difficult. Not a lot of money, but a lot of paperwork. And I wish all of these had been a little bit more organized. This is a good one. I think is really important. What I owe. So you don't have your heirs ending up with missed bills. Again, while they're in the process of grieving and frantically trying to settle your estate, you don't want them to get behind on your mortgage or your car payment. So letting them know what outstanding bills that you have, where you still owe money, is super important, so they can stay on top of that. I have found that these companies are really gracious. If you say, I'm in the middle of settling my loved one's estate and this bill is late, could you please waive the late fee? They're generally very, very helpful. On the other side of that, do people owe you money? And you need to make sure that your heirs can collect, right? Who owes me money? Information on how to contact them, information on how to get access to taking over that note that says that person now owes my heir money. Or maybe it will be something that will get waived when you pass away, and you will no longer hold that person to the debt and your heirs don't have to collect on it. If you own a business, if you're like me, I own Permaculture, all of that needs to be listed. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, super helpful directions on what you need folks to do to settle your estate. To me, it seems really obvious that we have a massively overcomplicated financial situation where a loved one passes away and we can't just grieve and go through their possessions. Hugely complicated financial picture, even if you don't have very many assets at all. What can your beneficiaries expect? Do you have a life insurance policy? Where is it? Where's the paper? When does the policy expire? That's a big one. Thanks for putting your dishes in the sink. Employer benefits, Social Security information. Maybe you will be the first one to pass away and your partner will need to claim survivor benefits. That will be important. What personal property do you own? What real estate do you have? Where is the location of things like deeds and titles? If you're renting, when does your lease expire? What's all the information for your landlord? Same thing if you own commercial property, if you own cars, boats, things like that. If you have vehicles, what's the VIN number on them? What's the license plate? Where are the keys? This section I really liked, and this is what I was talking about before with personal property. Heirlooms, what the item is, and what your wishes are. Notes and instructions. I think this is really important. If you want to make sure, sorry, my chair is squeaky. If you want to make sure that certain people get certain things, then you need to really clearly delineate, because you may assume that your heirs will be loving and gentle and will think about your wishes, but it could get really nasty. And if there's something clearly written, hey, mom said this goes to so-and-so, it can just prevent that conflict from happening. And a lot of conflict that can happen between siblings and other heirs is a result of the grief process, of not processing grief in a healthy way, of not having worked through it. And so that conflict can be like an easy out, an easy conduit for those really sad, upset, angry feelings. But if you have it all written down ahead of time, you can prevent your loved ones from having that kind of conflict in the first place. I know a friend of mine has suggested something like what her grandma did, where each child or each heir gets a sticker and they go around and they mark things, or other folks have just really clearly listed. And I think that can really help. That can really, really help that process be less difficult. A storage unit, if you have a safe, if you've hidden valuables somewhere. I'm in this Facebook group for like hidden behind walls or something like that. And people all the time will be like, oh, I found these wedding rings. Oh, I found this cash in this house that I just bought. If you have stashed something to keep it secure, make sure it's not so secure that your heirs can't find it. And 50 years later, when someone else buys the house, that they find it. Okay, this is a big one. Your pets. You may or may not have children, but if you have pets, you need to designate what will happen to them after your passing. Where is their license and ID information? Who is their veterinarian? Who do you want to care for them after you're gone? Just like material possessions, deciding who gets guardianship of your pets can be really contentious. If you don't have any children or any other heirs, you'll need to set up a guardian and perhaps think about leaving a quantity of money specifically set aside for their veterinary bills and their care. What to pay, close, and cancel. We're almost done here. Close all your credit cards. What utilities are still running on the house? Will your kids keep the house? If so, they'll need to change the utilities into their name. Or maybe there will be one remaining parent and they'll need to change them into the name of the trust account that's caring for that parent. Any accounts that you have open online that you want your kids to close, don't assume that they know what those accounts are. If there are charities that you want to give resources to, you can list that in your will very clearly, but also here. And since we live in the modern age, all of your email and social media accounts. Have you designated what will happen when those become legacy accounts? Have you decided who will manage that account, or will it get locked, or will it be shut down by somebody? Will you give someone the password? Do you want someone seeing all of the messages that you sent over the years to other people? What's your email? Please make sure that your heirs have access to your email. I can't tell you how many emails I had to go through, or how many accounts will send a verification code to your email before you can log into them. And so that was vital for me in dealing with the finances, was having access to my mom's email. This section is miscellaneous information. So if you're incapacitated and you can't communicate, but you're still alive, what do you want your caregivers to know? Anything that you want your caregivers to know about you, your wishes, what you hope for them. How many people have been told that this book exists? I love that this book really thinks of all of the details. I'm not sponsored by this book. Actually, I think there are probably several different iterations of this. I just think this one is really well put together. Who knows that this book exists? Who knows where it is living in your house? Who do you want to have access to it? Many blank pages just for notes at the end. Anything you want to say, anything you want to impart, personal wishes that you want, that you're hoping will be honored. So I think, much like how folks say that funerals are not for the dead, they're for the living, I think it's really important when we're thinking about our own mortality and our own eventual passing, that we think about those who will be living after us and what we hope for them. The love that we have for them can continue on in the way that we caretake. Those of us that are homemakers, our whole life is about caretaking, about giving love and provision for people that we love. And this book is no exception. We can continue to love and care for those folks after we're gone, and they will feel that love. They will have less stress in the process of working through your estate. They will remember you as somebody who cared for them, who thought of them, who anticipated their needs, and made sure things were as easy as possible. Thank you for watching today. I have lots more I could say about estate planning and the process of trying to settle an estate for a loved one, or the process of caring for an elderly loved one, the process of trying to decide who gets custody of your kids. All of those kinds of complex questions have been right at the forefront of my life for the last few years. And so I feel like I've become almost a little bit of a self-taught expert. I've kind of had to, and I wish that that process had been easier and much less trial and error for me. And I hope that for you all, it doesn't have to be so difficult. And I hope that for our kids, it doesn't have to be so difficult. So I will be back very soon from my permaculture garden in Portland, Oregon. Please be sure to check out my Patreon down below and click like and subscribe. I'm almost to 30,000 subscribers. So if you could share with your friends, if you could just encourage folks to click like and subscribe, that would be amazing. I would love to get to 30,000 here before the end of January. Okay, thanks, bye.